move on to another aspect of mobile payments, and that is the discussion of NFC, and Matt, I'd like to toss this one to you. So the CEO of eBay made a comment that NFC stands for not for commerce. Yet NFC is really dominating the conversation around mobile payments as a form factor for a long time. So your perspective on that, and what are we missing by talking just NFC mobile payments?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the eBay CEO's comments make sense to a certain degree because we all talk about NFC, banks talk about NFC, the carriers want to talk about NFC, payment processors want to talk about NFC, but frankly, consumers still don't get the value, right? When consumers see value in something, they seek it out and they actually do it, and they do it to the tune of millions and millions of dollars in payments. iTunes micropayments are wildly successful because people have these devices. It's the only way they can buy music. They happily load up their credit cards. They pay, they buy. It's very successful. PayPal, incredibly successful because the only way you could really pay money to somebody else on eBay was through PayPal. There was a real reason for that payment to be there. There was a real reason for consumers to get over the barrier of registration, to get over the security issues, and they bought, and it was wildly successful. NFC really hasn't done that yet. We don't know why a customer is going to say, I can swipe this, it takes about 5 seconds, or I can tap this, it takes 2.5 seconds. I'm going to tap my phone. We haven't bridged that gap. Now, we're doing a good job of trying to figure that out. Google Wallet's making some great steps there. I think that they finally hit the nail on the head with you have to combine information, right? Information services with the payment type. I think to your point earlier, the phone is the equivalent of a dynamic card. You can push real-time information to it. You can push valuable information to it that's personalized, that's real-time. Things that save the consumer money is going to get them to take notice, right? That's why everyone's using Groupon, or a significant number of people are using Groupon. Those sorts of value enhancers coupled with NFC are really where it's at, and I think that everyone's kind of got their head around that, and I think that's the direction that NFC is going to be going. So I guess I can relate to what the CEO of eBay is saying, but I think that we're gonna cross that bridge, we're gonna cross that hurdle. It's just a matter of putting all the pieces together. There's also a lot of ecosystem issues, which no doubt we're going to talk about as they relate to the players that I mentioned.
Any other points of view on the panel?
Yeah, I think we shouldn't be focused on NFC because that's a very small component of many things. I think we tend to think towards NFC because it's consumer focused, and it's probably an easy way for consumers to pay using their phones. But near-field communication hasn't reached critical mass in the US, or for that matter, anywhere in the world. And the reasons are pretty simple, because you can pay for your transaction in 2 seconds, but your cup of coffee is still going to take a minute. So it's not really solving the problem. Perhaps in a high footfall, a grocery shop kind of an environment where the merchant needs to keep moving the consumers, maybe NFC makes sense there. But the larger question is NFC really going to help us, or is it going to be barcode technology? Because some merchants have invested in barcode infrastructure, so they're saying, why go the NFC route when we can go the barcode route? We've got this. I'm sure Malcolm would attest to that. He's purchased a barcode infrastructure, and he'd love to leverage some of that technology. So it's just one tiny component, and I don't think a conversation with a merchant is going to go very well when we say, here's a $100 piece of advice that you can attach to your POS, and that will allow you to process phone transactions and contactless card transactions. Because the merchant is going to ask us, I don't see any NFC phones. I don't see any contactless cards right now. So it's a classic chicken and egg situation. And I know Visa has made certain announcements yesterday where they are actually encouraging or accelerating the plans of chip and PIN deployment in the US market, which I think is a pretty major shift in policy. And I think they're doing that for a variety of reasons, and part of it being that they want to promote NFC as technology so that the Visa wallet can become a little bit more but it's still got a long way to go. You know, there's nothing that stops someone like a PayPal, which has got 100 million active wallet users, to get those wallets transferred onto a mobile phone and interact with cash registers through a technology that doesn't have to be NFC. It can be Wi-Fi, it can be barcode, and you know, transactions can ride the rails of XML transactions as opposed to the standard ISO 8583 payment transactions, which are much narrower rail. So I think the industry needs to open up, and I think we can obsess about NFC.
I think that's a great point, and now I'm going to ask you, what is the mobile business case from your perspective? Because NFC has really dominated the conversation, but merchants haven't been persuaded to invest for the reasons that Sid just described.
Right, so most merchants have. Now, full disclosure, I actually led the project at Home Depot.
Speak up.
Sorry, can you guys hear me? So full disclosure, I actually led the project to implement NFC readers at Home Depot 2 years ago. So we have the NFC readers in our store, and we are essentially the egg waiting for the chicken, or the chicken waiting for the egg. Yes.
For the hen waiting for the rooster. I'm trying to be a little controversial.
So it's something that we consider, but again, we do have this process of getting the infrastructure moving. From our perspective, one of the opportunities that we see with NFC is, to Matt's point, because the consumers aren't going to take advantage of this till they see a convenience factor. They're not going to do it. They're not going to replace their swiping, which is so easy, which works everywhere, with tapping. So there's got to be an infrastructure thing where other retailers need to come on board, other payment people need to come on board, where tapping becomes ubiquitous as swiping is. So the question becomes, okay, well, how do we get movement? How do we get consumers to change their behavior? And I think the opportunity here for retailers, which is probably alone in it, because nobody else is doing this, is focusing on your essential core customer base. You look at somebody like Target, they have their Target card, and there is value associated with the Target card. The idea of moving people from your in-house card and getting that core group that already identified themselves as frequent shoppers at your store, moving them to some sort of mobile device, and then being able to communicate with them, and that we can now get information, we can communicate with those customers more directly, we can communicate with those customers possibly real time. The combination of having your communication channel and your payment channel being something that is literally on the customer's hip 24/7 becomes interesting. And if you can target sub-populations that are already key, that already have indicated a preference to shop in your store, is there. The other conveniences that I think mobile brings to the table is how many people have 3 or more of those barcode key tags on their key ring? 2 or more? Okay. So how many of you frequently forget those things in the car when you go to the store? So there's a convenience there of tying that information there, but there's a little bit of convenience there where you can now have payment information plus your belt information and drive some value to the customer. One of the things I see, having worked on the private label side, is that share of wallet space is always critical. If I'm working on a Home Depot card, how do I convince people to keep that Home Depot card in their wallet when you've only got space for 5 or 6, maybe 3 or 4 cards in your wallet? And I mean, I think ISIS is a really good example. They've got that clip from Seinfeld, where you've got George Costanza with the super fat wallet. There's an opportunity there. If you can have your receipts in there, if you can have your loyalty information there, if you can have your private label cards in there, there's an opportunity to provide some convenience to the customer, where maybe the customers can now get to a point where it was inconvenient for me to carry around my Home Depot card, my Costco card, my Blockbuster card, all of these other things. But now, that mobile wallet makes it convenient for me to do that. So maybe there's an opportunity for retailers to get customers over that hurdle of being able to grab a credit card. I mean, from my perspective, I'd much rather somebody pay with a private label card than a Visa and MasterCard because it costs me significantly less. So that's the business case for mobile. That's one business case for mobile. The other business case for mobile that you hear a lot of is that it needs to be some value given to the consumer, which everybody else says, well, from a merchant perspective, you need to build offers. The idea that we're going to build this great, everybody else is going to build this great technology, I have to then invest this technology in my store and then turn around and grind customers to use it. I don't get that in math. It doesn't work for me. There needs to be some additional value there. And from my perspective, I'm going to brag a little bit. I'm not a marketer, but I consider my brand to have a lot of power in itself. The word icon has been thrown around. I'm not going to use it right now. I don't necessarily need something like this. I think we've got a pretty decent customer watch. We've got a lot of customers. People talk about home improvement and all of that comes to mind. Maybe a couple other places. We're fairly strong in this space. I don't necessarily need something like coupons or Groupon or something like that to drive people into my store. Certainly not at a 50% discount. Other folks might, but for us that model doesn't work. So we're looking for something that's going to drive value to the customer at a value prop that makes sense for us. And right now, moving to an alternative form of payment is the only one that makes sense for us.
Can I quickly opine?
Yeah.
So the questions that we had, is because we're convening the merchants in the same room with the card brands, we're trying to get everybody on the same page. And what we hear is a mantra, from the merchant representatives, like, we want to know the end game, we want it future-proof. And so there seems to be, a common understanding that the most future-proof right now, and it won't be forever, NFC is really just a modem, it's a communication thing with the contactless chip. So there are other ways of making that, or the contact chip or contactless chip more secure. And those technologies will probably continue to evolve. Right now, it's sort of de facto for right now. It's as future-proof as we can give the merchant community. But then when they start talking about barcode, those are disruptive, but they're interim. And they agree on that, but it's a cheaper thing to do right now. Well, our discussions with Visa very recently, as they were doing this press release this week, is that the cost of the terminal have come down significantly. First of all, analysts somewhat overstate them. There are a lot of numbers out there, but they've come down significantly. And so when they introduce a liability shift, if you're a merchant and you don't accept the chip card, and then you're responsible if it's counterfeit, that might be a driver for modifying merchant behavior at least. I think that surveys sometimes when it comes to a consumer are not that predictive. They're useful, but nobody anticipated that all of those consumers across the world, not just in the United States, would go ahead and do a text message on their phone to make a donation to the Red Cross. So, we've got a lot of variables in play. Merchants want something, and all the other entities, organizations, industries in the microcosm of the ecosystem are trying to deliver and trying to find something that they can all agree upon. Is it NFC? But I don't know, but I think definitely if you're talking in the mobile context, it's contactless because you can't swipe. You can't contact. It has to be a contactless chip.
Alan, did you have something?
Yeah. The interesting part about what Malcolm was saying with NFC is that, there's the creepiness factor of having someone knowing you're in the store. This whole idea of offering, high value deals and information makes most people think of Minority Report, where Tom Cruise's face ends up on an ad, things like that. So finding that right balance is a major challenge when thinking about the uptake. I have a bit of a different theory about how this is all going to transpire. And it goes to your first of four, the channel extender piece of this, which is that all of us are sitting with a lot of apps that are e-commerce apps on our phone. And part of the compelling reason why you download an e-commerce app like the Guild Group or whatever is the convenience of checking out. And so I think at some point, those things are incredibly expensive for all the e-commerce retailers to maintain. We have two companies that write apps for Android and Apple. They don't work on all the Android phones. It's a real pain. I think I can see, what I'd love to see is HTML5 come into play, have a richer browser experience, and then have a wallet-based checkout. And then the wallet ends up on your phone, then it's used contactless while it's on your phone as opposed to the other way around. But I'm not sure that the use case, there's this, as we just described, of the contactless NFC security piece of it is going to really resonate with consumers as well as the creepiness factor. It's going to be a major problem.